Arriving in Brussels train station, I saw the Eurostar to London, which gave me an immediate buzz of excitement as I knew I would be going there in a few days. I used to live there, so I was excited to revisit. I got to Brussels a few hours before my hostel check-in time, which meant that I killed some time in a park where I was annoyingly accosted by several men. I felt quite vulnerable sitting with my luggage and not really knowing my surroundings yet. After checking in, I craved something familiar, so I ended up at an Irish pub where I got fish and chips and a good old Guinness or two, and I stopped by Waterstones, which is a company that I used to work for. It was nice to get a little taste of home. I walked around the streets and came across a band playing in the street, which was quite fun. I met some of the people staying in the dorm, one of whom gave me a lovely sweet treat. It was kind of like fudge, and we had a nice chat, which was nice. But sadly, my positive feelings did not last. During the night, I was awoken by two girls who were banging about and faffing with their luggage. The light was on and off and on and off. The thuds and rustling and chattering was getting on my last nerve. It was as if they weren't even trying to keep quiet, and I was absolutely livid. By the time they shut up, I was so angry I couldn't sleep. So I started my first full day in Brussels absolutely exhausted. Needless to say, I had enough of hostels by this point, so I forked out a lot of money to get a private room, which was much nicer and totally worth it. I went to the Royal Museum of Fine Arts in the afternoon. I saw the old masters' European artworks from the 15th to 18th centuries. The building itself was also an artwork in and of itself. I popped by a little supermarket after the art gallery where I was accused of stealing. A staff member asked to see inside my backpack when I was purchasing my items. They pulled out an apple that was a bit worse for wear as I'd had it in my bag since Salzburg, and they also took out a water bottle that was partially drunk. I find it hilarious that they really thought that the apple was in a sellable condition and that they were so extreme with their theft prevention. I didn't appreciate the accusation and lack of apology, but I was able to see the humour in the situation. And just to make it clear, I definitely did not steal an old wrinkly apple and a partially drank bottle of water. On my final day in Brussels, I walked around before arriving at the Museum of Musical Instruments. There were several floors of various instruments, and I had an audio guide, which allowed me to hear the instruments played. Whilst it was cool seeing lots of instruments, the museum itself felt a little bit outdated, and overall it could do with a revamp. I still enjoyed it though. After the museum, I headed to the Sea of Clouds, which is one of the most relaxing experiences I've had. It was a place where I experienced flotation therapy for the first time. I was brought into a room with sensory lights, music, and various seating options first. Following this, I entered a room where the flotation tank was located and it was covered in botanical plants. The tank is full of salted water that makes you float, and you just float and lie there in the darkness and come out into a shower with essential oils. Any tension that was in my body was relieved, and I felt like my mind and body had slowed to a gentle and calm pace. It was a very relaxing experience. I still had some time left in the day, so I headed to the Comic Arts Museum, which consisted of art from various Belgian comics. Nothing was overly familiar to me, but I still enjoyed looking at some of the art, and it was pretty quick to get around. And that's my postcard from Brussels. Brussels was the first place where I felt like I wasn't living in the moment. I was so ready for my final stop on my trip that the penultimate stop in Brussels became a strange limbo for me. It was difficult to fully engage. Despite this and the various hiccups I had here, I was still able to enjoy some of my experiences in Brussels. The flotation therapy in particular stood out, as it was the perfect way to relax myself after a long journey and prepare myself for returning to somewhere I used to call home.